Are there places in the world that now or in the past ate a whole food plant-based diet? And if so, what were the health and longevity statistics for them?
Well, this brings us around to Dan Buettner's famous book now called The Blue Zones. And he went around the world to see where people lived the longest, where the most centenarians, most people over 100 years old. And he found 5 areas around the world: Okinawa, the islands and off the coast of Greece, and Loma Linda in Southern California. And he looked at what are these people eating. And let me say right off the bat, none of them were pure vegans. But the majority of what went down their gullet every day grew out of the ground. These are folks who lived on grains and beans and fruits and vegetables. And all respect, or little respect to Mr. the doctor who's going out against lectins now. Don't eat beans, they have lectins. Well, all the one commonality among all these blue zone diets, every one of them had legumes in their diet. They all ate beans. So it obviously can't cut your life short if that's where the most centenarians were. And these folks, it was beyond just the food. And you see these wonderful pictures, the 100-year-old Okinawan farmer going up to his garden with a hoe over his shoulder with a smile on his face. There's a lot in that picture. First of all, he's growing his own food. He's doing physical work out in the sunshine. And he knows when he brings those veggies home, he's loved and respected by the people in his family who he's brought into this world. That's what supports a whole human being. And the majority of what goes down their gullets grew out of the ground. They may have a little fish or lamb or whatever once a week, twice a week, but it's a plant-based diet. So, but the folks who eat these animal-heavy diets, I mentioned the Bushmen in Kenya, the Inuit up in the Arctic, when they dig up their skeletons and look, they weren't healthy folks. Osteoporosis, clogged arteries. So the plant-based diets are by far the ones that are associated with long, pretty healthy lives. So that's where I'll put my money, and I suggest my patients do the same.
Can't we get too much sugar from eating large quantities of cooked beans and whole grains?
Interesting question. Now, the answer, I'll come right out and say, no, you can't. Why not? Couple of reasons. I mean, how many beans can you have? 3 cups, 4 cups, 5 cups of beans? Good heavens, there comes a point if they're in their whole form, you physically can't eat that much. And and without getting too much into the chemistry, where's the sugar coming from? The sugar is coming from starches, which are just sugars all strung together. And when we eat, say, a potato, the sugars that are all linked together in that form of starch, those sugars are broken up. The bonds between them are severed, and the sugar comes into the blood, and you can raise your sugar for an hour or two. It comes back down. It's not a terrible catastrophe. And those are with the starchy root vegetables. Why am I saying that? Because the beans, which is what the question involved, is less prone to do that. The sugars in the starches in beans and lentils and other legumes, they are really tightly bound to each other. And so much so, they're called resistant starches, because they will make it all the way through 22 feet of small intestine, even though they're being bathed with starch digesting enzymes, amylase from the pancreas and from the small intestine. They're resistant to those enzymes, and they make it through those 22 feet of small intestine to make it down to our colon, where the colon bacteria know how to dismantle those resistant starches, but they in turn turn it into good things, into short chain fatty acids, and that nourish our colon and don't raise our blood sugar. So because you can't eat, how many pounds of beans you're going to eat? Not very much. And the fact they're filled with resistant starches, the reality is that they're one of the most friendly glycemic index foods, because they don't raise your blood sugar very much at all. So enjoy your legumes. Now, that said, I've had some people stop eating meat. Oh, I'll use beans to make up for the protein, and they go right from eating no beans to 2 cups of bean chili or 4 cups of lentil stews. And oh man, that can really, when that hits the colon, when your colon wasn't ready, prepared for it, it can generate a lot of gas and distress, etc. So if you're new to legumes, just start with a tablespoon or 2 every day, and then slowly build up. Take a couple of weeks before you get into big bowls of bean chili and lentil stew. But if you give your colon bacteria some time to adjust, don't worry about what the legumes are going to do to your blood sugar. It just isn't going to raise it to any significantly high level.
Do flour products make you fat?
Do flour products make you fat? The short answer to the yep, they sure can, but there's some chemistry behind that. And I'm not a big fan of flour products for a couple of reasons. One, when you eat a whole some whole rice or barley. It takes hours for your digestive enzymes to work their way into that piece of barley that's down in your intestines, and for the amylase enzymes to break up the sugars, and as a result, the amount of sugar, what little tiny little fat there is in barley oil, it gets into the bloodstream very slowly. It's cleared out very quickly, doesn't cause much of a problem. But when you send, not barley so much, but the wheat or the oats to the miller, and they grind it into powder called flour, boy, that stuff leaps into your bloodstream. And many times, especially the white flour products, they really raise your blood sugar, which raises your insulin level, makes you store fats and other substances might be in the bloodstream at the time. So by its very nature of its higher absorbability and ability to raise blood sugar higher, and thus insulin level higher, it can lean towards making people fat. But again, the carbohydrates burn pretty quickly. It's not going to turn into fat. Let's just say this. No matter how much rice you eat, it's not really going to turn into fat in its whole form. We'll come back to the flour in a second. Why? Because when you eat carbohydrates like corn or potatoes or wheat, what really happens? The sugars that are in those starchy foods get into the bloodstream. The sugar will be sent to your muscles and your liver to be stored there as form of glycogen. But when your glycogen stores are full in your muscles and your liver, any more rice or sugar, your body's just going to burn it off as heat. Your body temperature go up 1/4 of a degree. You'll stick your foot out from under the covers at night, and you'll radiate that heat off to the air. It's not going to turn into fat. So in that way, pure sugars, they're not really going to turn into fat. But in the real world, what happens is this, and sorry for the chemistry here, but there's something called oxidative priority, and that means it's easier to burn sugar than burn fat. It's easier to blow apart a glucose molecule than metabolize a long-chain fat. So if you eat sugar and fat at the same time, if you put oil on your pasta, say, your body will burn the sugar and you'll store the fat for later. So that fat-sugar combo is what really puts the weight on you. So where do the flour products come in? All goods from the bakery, where muffins, cakes, donuts, whatever, are combinations of fat and sugar. You've got the sugar is the pastry flour. What's holding that muffin together? It's like there's some kind of fat in there. There's a sugar. There's shortening. There's egg yolk. There's oil. There's some kind of fat. All baked goods are that fat sugar combo. And in that way, will flour products, because nobody eats raw flour, it's always combined with a fat. And yes, in that way, flour products in the presence of fat certainly will contribute to weight gain and fat deposition. So long answer, but flour products, the way they're commonly consumed, yes, they're certainly quite fattening. Most breads are, unless they just have flour and water in them. But read the label. If you see any oil or egg yolk, whatever, it's going to be a fattening product.